Good afternoon. My name is Deanna Paglia, and I am the English Language Fellow at the Centro Cultural Peruano Norteamericano in Arequipa, Peru. Today we are here to talk about we're having a webinar on peer coaching. I also wanted to mention that this webinar is being sponsored by the RELO's Andes at the U.S. Embassy in Lima, as well as the U.S. Department of State. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good afternoon. My name is Lourdes Talavera. I am an academic coordinator at Centro Cultural Peruano Norteamericano. As Deanna said, we're going to be developing the topic of coaching, and we are going to have two guest teachers, Ruben Toranzo, who is the head coach, and Erika Chipana, who is a coachee. So let's start with the topic then. As we said, the topic is constructing and implementing a peer coaching program. Okay, let's look at our next slide. And our webinar goals are the following ones. Discuss the benefits of an instructional coaching program as a professional development tool. How to implement an instructional coaching program, pros and cons. And conduct feedback with coaches and coachees.
Next slide. So we wanted to share with you guys today some quotes and statistics, and there will be a couple of them throughout the webinar. So starting with this one, learning to trust is one of life's most difficult tasks. We chose this one because at the basis of our peer coaching program is trust. If you do not have trust in the people who you are working with, and we're working with you, then you don't really have a program. And we will also, like I said, comment on that later. I also wanted to bring it to your attention that even apart from in the educational field, having someone alongside you who's supporting you makes all the difference. And as you guys can see, there was a poll recently given by CNN Money about why people quit their jobs, and more than half of the people said they would leave their job, or they had left their job, if they had very limited access to mentors. So regardless of where you're working, it's always crucial to be with someone or have someone who's there to support you and guide you and lead you so that you become better at whatever it is that you're doing. And this is very, very true in the academic field as well. Next, please.
Okay, so what is peer coaching? We need to give a definition to this important term. So peer coaching is a process by which teachers work with one another to share expertise and provide feedback, support, and assistance. The peer coach does not advise or tell. We have to highlight that part. He or she asks questions and supports the coachee to find their own answers. So it is more a matter of support and guidance. So, and peer coaching is not exactly mentoring.
No, it is not. Next, please. Okay, so the beliefs that we're going to share with you right now, again, I want to just reiterate that they will be approached, and we will be talking about them throughout the webinar. So first of all, it's really important to know that when you're working in it with a peer coaching program, that everyone, no matter what, has the potential to learn and to improve what he or she does. And it's really crucial that the coach also believes that, and that the person who's being coached believes and understands that the coach feels that way about them.
Okay, another belief, the solutions to each person's professional challenges can be found within the school. And that is true. Sometimes we try to look for experts outside, but we do not understand that we have people very talented inside our schools who can really support the work of other teachers and who can grow professionally each other.
It's very true, and that's why a lot of schools and school districts might not realize that they already have the resources that they need in order to improve the teaching, the teachers themselves and their profession. All they have to do is look and find the people who are already there instead of hiring out. Also, we wanted to talk to you about those who share their skills as coaches will inevitably improve what they do. And later on, as Lourdes already told you guys, you're going to hear from the head coach and the coachee, and they will attest to this, that when you are a coach, then you too are learning and you are improving, because it's a two-way street, it's reciprocal, and you're both sharing.
Okay, and finally, the limits to achieving our potential are largely self-imposed. Okay, next slide.
Okay, so I had mentioned that we had some quotes, and there's a couple more that I really like, or that we really like. So the first one says that holding on to core beliefs about the people you coach is at the heart of what makes coaching so powerful as an agent of change. When you communicate confidence and trust in another person's ability to make choices, their performance goes up. So when the coach demonstrates that they believe in what their coachee is doing, then the coachee is going to feel at ease, and they're going to feel comfortable, they're going to trust that person, and they're going to trust themselves more, and they're going to be better at what they're doing.
There is a much better, the other quote, there is a much better chance of learning from someone in the next classroom than from someone 20 miles away. That is true. We need to have, we have our resources, our human resources inside our school. We have to take advantage of them and just implement the program so that everybody can gain, okay, the institution and of course all teachers.
And the last quote we have says that training courses and workshops fail to make long-term impact on classroom practice. We will actually discuss this further a little bit later on, as we have some statistics and graphs to back this up, but it's really important. Next slide, please. Okay, so why peer coaching? Why should anyone do this? It's actually, in our opinion, it probably is actually the best professional development tool that's available. And we have a multitude of reasons why we believe that, starting with peer coaching helps to establish a line of communication between faculty members. And when faculty members are working together for the greater good of the school and for the greater good of the students, that's when real change actually takes place.
Provide teachers a chance to think and talk about what they're doing. This program is going to give teachers a chance to reflect and to think what they are doing in their classes. And therefore, they're going to be thinking about their strengths and their weaknesses so that they can improve.
It also helps bring techniques teachers may use instinctively to the conscious level, thus improving the chance that they will be repeated. Sometimes in a classroom, when you're in there by yourself and you're just with your students, you may not realize that you're doing something that's really actually fantastic. And when someone else is in the classroom, they point it out to you. And they also can learn from what you're doing in the class. So by doing this, you're made aware of things you're already doing that are super, and you feel better about yourself, you feel better about your teaching, and you're sharing that with others.
Okay, expand teaching skills by expanding coaching skills. So this is a consequence. If we're going to be working on coaching, then teaching skills are going to improve. So we're going to be boosting that, and the benefit of the result of the students is going to be much better.
Right. So especially with what Lourdes was just saying, it's reciprocal. The coach learns as much as the coachee. The next one says, it increases the amount of time teachers spend on discussing instructional issues. And again, teachers often, at least I can say in my experience, have complained that they don't always have the chance to discuss, they don't have enough time actually to discuss with their peers about what they're doing in their own classrooms, how they can improve upon their practice. And when you have a peer coaching program, there's time that's taken specifically for this. And it makes a world of difference, because everyone feels much more at ease and they feel like they're being supported.
Provide technical feedback from respected peers. We are convinced that feedback is really a good way to make people reflect, and both coach and coachee benefit from it, because the coach is going to be looking for information to share with the coachee, and the coachee at the same time is going to be learning, and then they're going to be both of them growing.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It also provides opportunities to work together for the common good of the school environment. When this happens, so I think I briefly spoke about that, but it's the teachers are there because they care about the students and they want what's best for the students. And when they can get together and speak with their peers about it, then it's even better.
Okay, and finally, builds relationship between trusted peers. So as Deanna mentioned, this is a matter of trust. So that is a building block for all of this program. So we need to have that in mind.
Yeah. Thank you. Next slide.
So what are the characteristics of an effective instructional coach? An effective coach is one who helps guide his or her peer or peers to improve student achievement and outcomes. The coach and the teacher are effective when the students are successful in their learning and mastering of ideas and contents.
So to talk a little bit more about that, what the most important thing is that the students are learning and that they're mastering what they've been taught. It's not about whether or not the coach or the coachee enjoyed the class per se. It's really about the students. It's always about the students. Mm-hmm. And when people are working together to make what the students are learning even better, then that's when you're achieving your goals.
Yeah, this is like a chain. So the coach helps the coachee, and the coachee is going to be helping the students.
Exactly.
That is our ultimate goal, to make the students learn.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Something that sometimes is forgotten is that many times institutions or even students or teachers focus just on the grades and not necessarily on what really students are learning in the process. They may have a great passing grade, but after all, sometimes they don't really master what they had, or probably what they learn will be just for some time and then they forget it. I think it has happened to a lot of teachers.
Right, and that's definitely, that's a really good point, and that's a problem that I've seen a lot in the States. And you know, it's something that we're always trying to improve upon our own practice so that the students are not just memorizing something, but that they're owning what they're learning. And when you're working with a coach, then you guys can talk about that, like you can actually tackle that problem together so that the students are actually benefiting even more.
Yeah, because after all, the students have to build their own learning.
Exactly.
It's not going to be transmitted from the teacher.
Yeah, and we have to help to that to happen.
Exactly, thanks. Next slide, please. Okay, so the principles of coaching, and again, these are themes and topics that will come up and up again. So confidentiality. You have to be able to confide in someone and trust them. It's of utmost importance actually when you're working with a coach, and you need to have, for someone to feel comfortable in order to, I'm not going to say, well, bearing your soul, but it's really, you know, it's your job. It's what you do. It's you identify with that. You need to feel that the person that you're working with is someone who believes in you and you believe in them. And it has, absolutely, it's not about judgment. This is not about being evaluated. And it's really important that those ideas and beliefs are established at the beginning of when you're start developing a relationship. Because if there's judgment of any type, then obviously, most likely with the coachee, then they're not going to feel comfortable, and then it's not going to work.
Okay, another principle is a belief in the coachee's capacity to learn, develop, and change. Definitely, everybody wants to progress in life, so we need to be convinced that working with the coachee, they're going to be able to grow, and that is our goal.
Yes,
in this program. We need them to be better. We need to focus on their strengths and to perform much better in classes.
And you know, this is not about, like we talked about at the beginning, this is about guiding. This is not about telling or directing someone. So you're recognizing that everyone comes to the table and they have strengths, no matter what they're doing. So it's about building and maintaining the self-confidence and self-esteem of the person you're working with. The stronger they feel about themselves and what they're doing, the better they're going to be at teaching their students, and the more the students are going to learn.
Okay, challenging the coachee to move beyond the comfort zone. Sometimes, I mean, it's much easier to be in your comfort zone where you can move, you know it, and it is kind of frightening to see what is beyond. but we need to push the coachee and to convince him or her that they can grow, that there is a, we can say, much more to learn, and it is a matter of just convincing and working, supporting, guiding.
Right, because when you're in your comfort zone, then you're relaxed. You're probably not pushing yourself. It's when you're actually outside of that comfort zone is when you start to learn and actually changes start to occur. And it's really important. That's applicable for anything in life, actually.
Yeah.
I know that for a fact. Okay, so also another principle would be a belief that there are always solutions to issues. This is about this is not about saying, hey, this is a problem. No, it's looking at saying, how can we work to make this better, and we're finding a solution to it, but not making anyone feel bad about what they're doing.
Yeah, let's forget about regrets or complaints, but let's focus on solutions.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is backing up what we just said, but you're breaking everything down. So any challenge you have, you can break it down when you're working with someone else, especially, and making something that's manageable and that you can actually conquer.
Yeah, if you have it in steps, it's much easier for someone to get it.
Yep.
Yeah, and probably something I've noticed is that probably just these little steps that they start giving coaches or even coaches as well, the little steps, they are going in not necessarily in a specific direction, because all that knowledge is going to be built up in a moment with all these little steps. So not all the time we're going to have a specific target point, but we're going to by little discover where we are going to get at the end.
Yeah, and as you say, maybe we can start like changing and refining, refocusing, so that we can get to what we really want.
That's great. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have obviously talked about the trust and how important having trust with someone that you're working with is pertinent. And here we have an example of the trust model. And all of these factors come into play. And we believe that the coaches that we're working with all embody all of these factors. When you're building relationships with collaborating teachers, you need to have these characteristics in order to have a strong relationship and for people to be able to collaborate together. And communication skills obviously help build trust.
Yeah, then we have commitment.
Yeah.
All of them are related to feelings. And when someone is emotionally involved, it is much better than just knowledge. When your feelings are involved, it's like you can have it as part of yourself, and you can put like more your feelings, and you can be more successful when you are starting something, when you are starting a project, or when you are starting to work on something. Okay, also we have collaboration and ability, which are part of competence, and integrity, of course, which is a very important characteristic or trait.
Yeah, they're super important. And like I said, we look for people who embody these characteristics, and they actually do. We find that they're much more successful when all of these components are present.
Yeah, probably something else you said is like these feelings. For example, something that has happened to me a lot, and I noticed that, is that if we don't have empathy with the coachee or with the students, actually it's not going to be successful. I remember having read something like, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Right? So we are senior teachers, we've been teaching for 5 years or 20 years. We've been there in that moment when we are just learning. And we have learned from some other people, more experienced teachers, more experienced coaches and that. So empathy will be probably a key word as well there.
Yeah, actually, I totally agree, and I think empathy should be part of this, but regardless, it's absolutely important.
Yeah, that's caring.
It's all about
right, caring, empathy. Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a list of coaching traits that we have. There's obviously, the list could go on and on and on. But I also want to, before we start going over okay, we'll start with listening. A coach is someone who's going to be listening to the coachee, but they're listening to respond and to guide. They're not listening just to hear themselves speak so that they can answer. They're not just listening so that they have an immediate answer, and they're not even paying attention to what the person is saying. That's really, really important.
And not also to judge. Okay?
Exactly.
You listen to help.
Exactly.
Not to judge or criticize.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And when it says here, asks open questions, what we mean, well, how we interpret that is that we're guiding, right? So you believe as a coach that your coachee actually already has the answers. They just need to dig a little deeper or, evaluate a little bit more what they're doing, and then they can find the answer, right? So you're putting that trust into them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. A good coach clarifies points made, also encourages reflection, and I would like to stop here because I think sometimes we finish sometimes our lessons and we move to a different class and we start another lesson, but we don't have this time to reflect and think about the things that happen in our lessons so that we can improve and we can see what else we can do to have a better lesson next time. And I think that is a crucial word here in a crucial process that we need to implement. That's why we are thinking that, we're convinced that coaching really helps to do this. Okay, and based on that, of course, reflecting on your practice, you can improve.
And if, of course, a good coach is going to encourage that, just like Lourdes was saying, you have to reflect. If you're not reflecting, then then personally, I don't think you care enough about what you're doing, because there's always room for improvement, and a good teacher knows that, and they know that they have to step back and ask themselves, what am I doing? How am I doing it? What can I do to make this better?
Mm-hmm. A good coach avoids telling. As we said before, it's not about telling, but it's about supporting and guiding.
And obviously, you have to have that strong relationship. You have to have that rapport with the person you're working with. If you don't feel comfortable, if the coach doesn't feel comfortable with the coachee or vice versa, it's not going to work. And that is not something that happens overnight. And we're going to talk more about that later with our program, about how we've extended it so that we can have stronger relationships between our coaches and coachees.
Okay, also a good coach is non-judgmental. So the coach is not in your class as an evaluator to give you a grade. It's not going to criticize you, but it's going to help you to find in which areas you need to grow, which are the strengths you need to focus more on. And the coach is not going to telling you, but it's going to helping the coachee to discover, okay, what things he can do or she can do to improve in classes.
Okay. It says helps to see the big picture, because sometimes people focus on the little things, or they think that they're not doing a good job with one little thing and then they feel bad. But it's not about that, because really, if you're dedicated to improving yourself, then the big picture is going to show you that, yeah, you're probably doing really well at many, many things, and you need to be aware of that. And having someone in your classroom who can point those things out to you is much, much better, because most people, we self-criticize. I can say I do that. And we don't realize that we actually are doing a good job. And if we focus on the little things that maybe didn't go well, even though, yes, everyone has room to improve, but with someone else there to help you see that, yeah, you're doing a great job, let's just try and fine tune something.
Mm-hmm. Encourages commitment to action. Of course, a teacher shouldn't be passive.
No.
A teacher should be always be dynamic in the process of teaching and learning. Has to be learning all the time. If you stop learning, if you stop reading, then you shouldn't be a teacher anymore.
No.
You have to be moving all the time, and of course the coach is going to be there to push you.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also really important to know that, sometimes we feel that if I were, a first-year teacher, I can think back a long time ago, there were elders in the building or teachers who've been there for maybe 20, 30 years. And I would just assume that they had all the answers, you know, but that's not necessarily the case. And with coaching, the coach knows that they are not the end-all, know-all, that they are there to learn as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if a coach were to have that attitude that I know everything and you don't, then it's impossible for the relationship to be open and trusting as well.
Okay, and again, trust, okay, which is the key word for our coaching, and of course respect, because as you said, I mean, being a coach doesn't mean that you know all the answers or you are the expert, because you're learning, so you have to respect each other. Even if you are a very experienced teacher with 30 years in the field, and you're working with a very new brand teacher, you need to be respectful, because you need to be also you have to be empathic. Right?
Empathetic,
yeah, because you have to be in the other person's shoes. Okay.
And I just want to say, back at home in Colorado, when I was working with students who were about to graduate and they were starting to be teachers, and they would come into my classroom for about, for the semester more or less. And I actually, I've been teaching for about, I think this is probably 17 years now. So having the, they're usually 20, in their early 20s, the students would be in my classroom. The thing is, I actually learned a lot from watching them, because they're going through school now as opposed to when I went through school, and they bring other things to the table that I didn't even think about, so it really is a two-way street. I learned a lot from them. I know they learned from me too. I hope they did, but definitely it was great because we were able to share that, And we already mentioned this about being solution focused, so that when you do have a problem, it's not about the problem, it's about finding the solution. And obviously that the coach has the strong belief that their colleague or colleagues have the capacity to learn, develop, and change, because you have to believe in that person.
Yeah, it's a matter of trust again.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, next slide, please.
Okay, so I had alluded to this at the beginning, and this is a graph from the University of Kansas Center for Research on Learning, and it says that recent research indicates that with classroom coaching, implementation rates rise 85 to 90%. And so this is what they have to say about it. One research study conducted by the University of Kansas for Research on Learning evaluated a group of 87 teachers from different schools. The result of the study indicates that 85% of those teachers who receive ongoing support from instructional coaches implement newly learned instructional methods, a factor that enhances teacher quality. In another study conducted by the same group, research indicates that teachers who do not receive such support implement newly learned strategies at only a rate of 10%. And that is really key, because when you're working with someone and you're seeing how they do it and you're practicing, you're much more likely to implement that in your own classroom, as opposed to going and sitting in a lecture or a workshop even, where you're not interacting with the person who's presenting. Then the chances of you actually doing that in your classroom and improving your own practice is at only 10%. So as you guys can see, the difference is very extreme. Next slide, please. Okay, so here, this is basically the same, but it's just, projected.
Okay. It's related also to the type of training you get. Yeah, yes. It's very related, because what happens if you learn just through theory, through practice, or also adding that peer coaching. Okay, so according to this chart, okay, from theory, 5% of teachers will transfer a new skills into their practice, okay, as a result of theory, okay? And 10% will transfer a new skill into their practice with theory and demonstration. 20% will transfer a new skill into their practice with theory and demonstration in practice within the training. 25% will transfer a new skill into their practice with theory, demonstration, practice, and feedback within the training. And surprisingly, 90% will transfer a new skill into their practice with theory, demonstration, practice and feedback within the training, and coaching support in school. So that's why we think peer coaching is really important in order for people to implement changes, real changes in their classes.
So as you can see, I mean, in what Lourdes just said, it's not, the other models are just not effective. I mean, the research is out there, it proves this. And I think for those of us who have actually worked with peer coaching programs, we know that to be true as well.
Yeah.
And it's really important because the thing is, schools and, language centers have the resources that they need already. They have the experts already in their school that can obviously perform as coaches and help the people that they're working with.
Yeah, it's just using, I mean, we have to take advantage of people we have. We have a lot of potential, as I said before. So
yes.
We need to use that in our own benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And that is going to help each other in the end.
Yep, exactly. Okay. We're all here to help each other grow and to help our students. That's the main goal.
Yeah, and they're going to succeed.
Yeah,
students.
Exactly.
I mean, they are our focus.
Exactly.
Yes.
Students.
After all, actually, for example, you mentioned theory there. Anyone can buy a book anywhere, but it doesn't make that person a good teacher or not.
Exactly.
Even they can try to put that into practice, what they read, they can try to put that into practice. And well, they might be successful according to these statistics, 10 to 15%. But if there is somebody else telling me what I did great and I can improve it, or what can I actually change a little bit to make it better, so that's going to be like everyday step, as we mentioned, a moment ago.
Mm-hmm.
So theory you can find it anywhere, but it's not necessarily going to change your style.
Yeah,
it's very true.
Yeah, it's just knowledge sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But you don't get to put it into practice.
No, you don't. Mm-hmm. Next slide, please. Okay, so this instructional coaching components, the collaboratively explored data, we agree with this model. It's not exactly the model that we're using because we don't make everything obligatory, but one thing that we would add to this would be at the beginning when you start with enroll teachers is also the fact about building the relationship. Because without that, as we've said, you don't have anything.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, all of this is a cycle, as Deanna said. All of these are steps that we can implement in our coaching program. But without feeling there, without that trust element, I mean, we don't have anything.
Right.
So we need to add that to that cycle to be successful.
Exactly. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, so with the warm and cold feedback, again, this is all about the rapport that you've established, the relationships that you've developed, and the way you talk to people, which is really important. And it's the same with your students. Your students know they're obviously going to be more receptive when you're warm and not cool with them, correct? So you have to be supportive, and you need to be personal. Being impersonal means you're being cold, and it's going to be really hard to relate to someone, right? So that goes against everything that we've been talking about. And when it says strength-oriented as opposed to needs-oriented, it's focusing on the person's strengths. It's not focusing on what they need to do to change.
Okay, and also we have to focus on solutions and not on the problem. That means we have to look forward and not backward.
And of course, you're promoting positive learning. And it's not about criticizing. It's about trying to help someone find the way to make things better. You're guiding them, but you're not criticizing. And regardless if it's constructive criticism or not, that's not the goal we have in mind. Next slide, please. Okay, we really liked this graphic because a coach is someone who is leading, but they're also learning. So it's very applicable to what we're talking about.
Yeah, because we need to think, as we said before, through all this webinar, is that, talking about the coach is not just about the person who knows everything, like leading everything, but it's also the person who's learning, who's humble enough to also get the best from the coachee.
Exactly. Next slide, please. Okay, so reflection, which we've brought up many times now, it's pertinent. And the teacher and the coach independently and systematically reflect on their collaborative work, fosters the development of the student's understanding, which we've also have talked about. But again, I know we said this, but it's really, really important that we want to make this very clear, that when you're working together, and it's for the greater good of the students. It's for their understanding, it's for their mastery of whatever subject you are teaching. And again, the collaborative part of it comes in with the teachers working together, and that trust is there. And we've seen it, teachers they definitely are able to improve their teaching practice. And you also always have to step back no matter what you're doing and ask yourself, is this working? And if it's not working, what can we do to improve it? And that goes for our coaching program as well, right? So whatever you're doing, you always have to be open to taking a step back and reflecting and asking yourselves, what can I do? And if it's not working, how can I improve this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely a cycle.
It's a cycle.
Yes, every process is a cycle, and we always have to be evaluating it to see what is missing, to see what we need to add, to see what we need to delete, and finally have a better product, right? A better program.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Next slide, please.
So how is coaching different from other helping processes? We have here like a group of them, okay, like directing, guiding, mentoring, advising, facilitating, but we have coaching as a non-directive way of help. That means it is more support, it is more guidance, it is not like telling what to do or criticizing, as we are trying to say, okay?
Yeah.
But it is a matter of developing trust, developing good rapport, both reciprocal, both coach and coachee, so that both of them can grow together.
Mm-hmm. Next slide, please. Okay, we're going to start talking about the peer coaching model that we actually utilize here at the BNC. But first, I'm going to talk to you guys about, we have a mentoring program, we have a coaching program, and we also have a program for first-year teachers. And when I came here in September, I was introduced to the way that the first-year teachers were actually kind of being acclimated. And at the time, they were being asked to, I believe, observe a total of 8 different teachers a month. The problem being that there was no relationship. So a first-year teacher would just go into a classroom and sit there and observe for the hour-and-a-half classroom period, and then they would leave. But they would have no idea what they were supposed to be looking for. There was no two-way conversation about it. I mean, there was no conversation about it at all. So they were confused. And when I started speaking with the first-year teachers, I realized that this was something that we actually needed to improve upon. So Lourdes and I talked about it. And again, so this is us stepping back and reflecting and, seeing that this is something that wasn't working. What can we do to make it better? And we decided that we thought we would try this out, and actually have gotten a lot of positive feedback about it. So we assigned teachers, we chose 5 topics that we had noticed, or we think teachers kind of struggle with when they first become a teacher, right? And we chose classroom management, giving directions, modeling activities, listening activities, because we're an English school, and error correction, as well as the difference between teacher talk time and student talk time. So what we did was we gave them this format, and the teachers had to go and observe teachers, and they had to just observe. We assigned a teacher and an objective, and they knew exactly what they were looking for in that classroom. And then each first-year teacher also has a coach that they work with. So after having observed, we said about 2 to 3 teachers, the new teachers would come and sit down with their coach and have an open and honest discussion about what they observed and what they saw in the classroom that they liked and what they could put into practice themselves. And it also gave them a chance to reflect on what they were doing. So So if they wanted to tweak it or not, or what they, hopefully, they picked up other, other ways of doing things that would be more effective in their classrooms. And thus far, it's been very successful. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely. This new process is giving room for coaches to reflect and to discuss, because that didn't happen before.
Right.
And they can focus on just one aspect in the class. They can take notes, and then they can reflect, and they can combine maybe what they observe with their own style, because it's not a matter of just imitating what the coach does,
right,
or what the coach suggests, but also discover how to implement those ideas that the coach is giving you, so that you can implement them using your own teaching style. So definitely it's a success now.
Right.
And coaches, new teachers,
the new teachers
really like it.
Yeah,
really like it.
So we're going to start by explaining to you guys how this coaching program actually came to be. And what we've done, again, we had to step back and evaluate and figure out how we could improve upon it. So we're going to start by talking about the original program, and then what we've done to change it.
Yeah, well, last year, Deborah Borges, who was ourselves also, it gave us a lot of ideas on how to implement coaching, and she found out that we really needed to implement that in our institution. So she observed different classes, and she found, she identified people who had these special characteristics to be coaches, and then they did some training, and then we chose some people who really needed help, and we started the process, and the process had basically 3 steps, which was the pre-conference, in which both a coach and coachee agreed on an aspect to observe. Then it was the observation itself, and finally there was the post-observation session, in which the coach gave some feedback. And well, it was basically that cycle, right? That was what Deborah helped us implement, and it was the beginning. It was really great. It was a good experience, really enriching for everybody.
Of course. And so when I came here in September, I was told that Deborah, who was the English language fellow the previous year, that she had, started this new program, and I wanted to see, I think it's a great program, but I wanted to see what else we could do to make it a little bit better. Because again, I think there's always room for improvement. So I came up with, Lourdes and I talked about this, and I came up with a different, it was a little bit more elaborate, the program that we have now. So we have, it's a step process, and it begins by I have identified the coaches. We know the people who represent that model we showed you guys, with the trust, the compassion, the caring, the ability, having all those characteristics. We identified, we have a great number of teachers actually who embody those. So we have a great group of coaches. And we also have, teachers, first-year teachers, second-year teachers, third-year teachers, etc., who could benefit from working with a coach. And we did it a little differently by asking people who would like to be part of the coaching program, instead of saying, you know what, you have to be part of the coaching program, because someone has to want it. They have to want to change. They have to want to grow. And by forcing someone to do it, then we're wasting everyone's time. So we decided that we would go about it that way. So we paired up coaches and people who were interested in being coached. And their first step is having a conversation where they really get to know each other. And the other thing that we allow them to we ask them to discuss, we give them the choice, is whether or not they want to be involved in co-teaching or not, because we don't want to make anything obligatory. Again, I personally believe that when you tell people you have to do something and they're not comfortable with it, then it's not going to work. So when they have their first meeting and they get to know each other a little bit better, and they decide, okay, is co-teaching something we're going to look into, or are we going to stay away from that? And it's their decision. It has nothing to do with anyone else. Then they have the first visit, the first, we'll call it the classroom observation. And people sometimes, it's nerve-wracking to have someone in your classroom. And I mean, we all, as teachers, we know that, you're used to being in your classroom with your kids, and it's your territory, and having someone else come in, it's a little bit off-putting sometimes, but that's why it's so important to have these strong relationships, right? So after, during the first observation, and this is all discussed in the first session so that there's more the trust, right? That the coach who's going in there isn't there to judge. They're going in because they clearly and they sincerely want to help. So I ask that the coaches just write down everything that they see, just so they have a better idea of what's going on. Again, going back to that big picture. Okay, we want to see the big picture. We're not focusing on what we think that they need to improve upon. We're not judging, right? And then so after that first visit, the coach emails. Next slide, please. Sorry, I forgot to mention this. So after our first session, the coach will email, this is after the first observation, emails these questions to the coachee. And some of the questions are a little bit different than what people are used to seeing, but the most important thing is that they make people reflect. And next slide, please. So after after they've answered those questions that you guys saw on the previous slide, they meet again, the coach and the coachee. And the key here is that they choose one or two aspects that the coachee shares with the coach, one or two aspects that they really think that they'd like to improve upon with the guidance of the coach. And that's how we continue. And we actually do this for 4 observation classes. And after every single time the person is observed, then the coachee picks, we have a total of 12 questions. It's this slide, the next slide, and the one after that. So next slide, please. And next one. So the coach is asked to choose 4 or 5 questions, email it to the coachee. Again, we're talking about, this is the most important thing, is a reflection, right? And then when they have their next meeting, and like I told you, there's a total of 4 observations, and I believe there's 4 meetings. This guides their discussion, right? And then, as you guys can see with number 12, the last one is really, we need feedback, obviously, on how our program is going, if it's working or not. So we also like to get the feedback from the people who are involved, people in the trenches, how it's going. Okay, so I know I went through that a little bit quickly, but I really want to take advantage of the fact that we have 2 amazing teachers with us here today. And we have our head coach, Ruben, and we have one of our English language teachers, Erika, and they're going to actually share with you guys right now their insights and from having gone through this process and what they've learned and how they feel about it. So please share.
Yeah. Well, something I really learned from all this process. Okay, at the beginning, as you mentioned, for example, is that sometimes when we are like new teachers, we usually tend to tell students what to do, and we consider sometimes that the coach is kind of a student. But then, all this process, this training and all that, with all the experience I've learned, the first time when I was visiting different coaches' classrooms, I found out that I was taking more ideas from them than I was providing. So it was, as you said, this two-way street.
Yeah.
Actually, it was like I was learning much more than I thought I was giving. Then something else you mentioned definitely is that sometimes we don't notice what we're doing right until somebody says that was great. I think that's a good idea. So, and those little things sometimes motivates the teacher or the coach or the coachee to do it better, to improve it. Okay, so if they really like it, so well, that must be good. So I can improve it, and I put my effort on that. Okay, and all that. You mentioned something else, first of all, about this whole trust. I found something the other day reading as well that says the Mudéker mediocre teacher tells, the good teacher explains, the superior teacher demonstrates, that the great teacher inspires.
Yeah.
So if we want to become these great teachers, there must be something else. So it's not only providing knowledge, it has to be gaining their confidence. And if we want to inspire a person, it's because we have built this confidence that we need, okay, that you have been talking about in this webinar. So we have to gain, after all, coaches, at least the ones that are going to be, they have to gain their confidence, their coaches' confidence, because they are like the intruders in the classroom.
Great show. Okay. So you guys, so Erika, can you tell us a little bit about your experience, please?
Yeah, sure. I think I'm really thankful for having been, for having been given the opportunity to be a coachee. I think I really learned, and I think I really improved my classes now, and I feel more confident than in the past, because at the beginning I was really nervous. For example, the first class, when they went to my class to observe, I was like, no, what mistakes am I going to make? And I was like, not trying to change what I had to, because in the very first meeting that I had with my coach, I was told that I was not going to be judged. Although I knew that, or I was aware of that, I still felt nervous, and I thought, no. But then it changed more. I felt better. And then, as teacher Ruben was my coach, he said, no, but you're not, you don't try to, you shouldn't, or you're not supposed to try to impress me, but your students. And I was conscious of that. I knew that I didn't have to impress him, although he was my teacher in the past and stuff like that. And I was afraid that he thought that I was not a good teacher or everything. But at the end, and one of the proofs that made me realize, or maybe be more conscious about that, was when I was in my classroom starting my class, and then he knocked on the door, and I was like, hi teacher. But he was there, and he asked if he could enter observe my class, and I said, okay, do it. And I had my classroom as, I didn't plan to impress him but my students. And I think it was also because of the trust I had on him. I was really, I admire him because I was his student, so I learned many things from him. And I think that is why I also improved because of that. So I felt comfortable having him telling me, helping me realize what I had done well or not. Because he asked me at the beginning, he said, how did you feel your class? Did you feel that your students learned? Or what do you think went well, and what do you think went, not really well? And I was like, okay, and I gave the answers, but it was not him, the one who told me, okay, you did this well, or you did this bad.
Excellent. Yeah.
So I felt that I had to answer, and I had to reflect, and I usually try to reflect. Although sometimes, as you said, there is not enough time to go because you have to go to another classroom.
Yeah.
So, but I think I really improved, and I feel better now when I'm with the students.
That's excellent. That's exactly what we want to hear, because we want to know that our program's working, right?
It is.
And that you're gaining something from it, Ruben's gaining something from it, and everyone's gaining something, and that the students on top, everything, the students are, the students are learning something, and they're actually owning their knowledge, right? And they're improving. And you mentioned that you respected him before because you were his student, and that actually, is crucial too, right? Because it's part of the relationship. You guys already had a relationship which was great, right? But you work well together.
Yeah.
You have that rapport, that openness, and the trust.
I was really happy when I knew that he was going to be my coach. And I said, oh, I am going to be with him again. Because he was my teacher in the past.
Okay. Yeah. Next slide, please. Okay. That's what we were just discussing. And Lourdes, did you want to talk a little bit about your experience?
Okay. I would say that it was a really enriching experience. I could see that my coachee was really improving a lot because at the beginning she was really, really nervous. At the beginning it was kind of hard for her, especially.
Yeah.
But then we have developed a very good friendship, even, beyond the classroom.
Yeah.
Because it is not just like she's looking for me for advice for lessons, but also in her private life. So I think developing a trust relationship and really friendship, that has to be a purpose.
It absolutely is, and you know, it really changes the environment of the school too.
Yes.
So when the teachers are actually like on friendly terms with each other, and the kids notice that, you know, and usually, like, I'm sure, you know, you guys are well respected by the students, and then they're like, oh, so and so are their friends, and like that's cool, you know, and they love that, you know, and then when they go from your class to her class or whatever, like, oh, well, teacher Ruben taught me this, and you know, teacher Erica taught me this, you know, and the students, it's really a positive experience for everyone.
Yeah, and there is not selfishness, because you can get to share everything you want, and they're gonna also be open. They're gonna trust you enough to ask you for advice when they don't know how to explain something. So I think it's reciprocal.
Yes.
In your growing, both of them, right? Coach and coaching.
Exactly.
Okay. We have
some
minutes. We can ask for some questions.
Yeah. So I don't know if anyone in the audience has any questions that they'd like to ask us from anything that they've heard today. If not, then I guess we will just say thank you very much for having attended our webinar. Hopefully this was
okay. We have some
okay.
questions.
So it looks like we actually do have some questions. Just give us a second so we can pull them up.
Okay.
We're still waiting. Sorry.
Yeah, we can see the question. Can you repeat number one, please?
Can you repeat number one, please?
Okay, if the feedback should be in English.
Okay, so can you put it back up, please?
Yeah, she was saying something like about the coach and coachee, if the feedback should be in English or it must be in the mother tongue.
I didn't see that. Okay, unfortunately, I didn't get to see who wrote the question or where they're.
Pinela Vargas.
Pinela, okay, I don't know if it told us where she's from, but she was asking about in the coaching program, whether or not, if obviously we're at an English language school right now, if the feedback has to be done in English. I think, honestly, personally, I think it's whatever the teachers feel most comfortable discussing it. I mean, the level of English that we have here at our school is very, very, very high. They're super talented. They speak English really, really well. So whenever I've observed people actually giving feedback, it's always been in English. But again, I think it's really
Pamela.
Oh, Pamela. Okay, she's from Colombia. So I think that it really depends on where you're located, you know, and how well you feel about, you know, conversing in that language.
Okay. And the second question was like suggestions to match coach and coachee. I would say that if, for example, you see that a coachee needs like improving in the using of, we can say, or reducing teacher talking time. Okay, maybe you could look for someone who's really good at doing that in class, so that it's going to be kind of a good model and could give good advice and could be really inspiring, as Ruben said, so that the person can really get and learn. I don't know if you know of other way to match.
Well, I mean, that's basically what you and I have been doing, right? With especially with our first year coaches. I mean, our first year teachers, because we identify teachers who excel in certain areas, and then we always have that list. We know who does really well, you know. So we just match, and regardless of whatever area it is, and then we just match them up. So that's how we do it. We observe and we focus on people's strengths, and then we see where someone they might even tell us, oh, you know, I don't feel like I do a very good job at giving directions, for example. Who can you set me up with?
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. I think that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us. And I also want to take this time to thank Ruben and Erika and of course Lourdes for joining us today. Thank you. It was a great
Okay. Yeah, it was great. And we have one more question.
Okay.
It said Soledad Arias. Should the coach have more seniority?
You know, honestly, like usually the coaches do have a little bit more seniority,
Yeah,
but like I mentioned, and Ruben's mentioned that too, that when he's gone into classes, like he feels like he was learning more than he was actually giving. And when I was, back in the States when I was doing this, obviously I was older than the students who were in my classroom, the college students, but I think it really depends on what you're trying to improve upon, because just because someone's young doesn't mean that they can't help someone else. Actually, we've seen that. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, no matter what your age, you always have something to offer.
Yeah. It's a matter of attitude, I would say, also.
And as you said, there are many things that we can learn. For example, if we say like all these teachers that they don't have probably too much contact with technology, let's suppose, they will go to a very young teacher to learn about technology and activities and all that.
What is the best way to create sympathy between a coach and a coachee? Sympathy and
empathy.
Yes. Yeah. How can we create?
So you guys went through a training about how to, work with others. But the thing is, like we talked about this before with the model, is that we observe teachers that we think would be great coaches because we know them personally, and we look for certain characteristics. And those people, we haven't had any issues. The people we've chosen have been phenomenal, and we haven't had anyone complain about it. So it's really, you have to know your staff, and you have to trust that they're going to do a good job.
What's the best observation tool that a coach uses?
The best observation.
Well, about that, it all depends on what the thing you want to observe, because the coach can create his or her own tool to observe and to collect data. Like, for example, if you want to check participation, you can take like a diagram with circles. Each circle is a student, and then you put like sticks every time each person participates, to make sure that everybody, has a say in the class. So it is a matter of just seeing what aspect of the class you're going to observe, and you can create your own instruments, or also you can Google some of them, and you can find also other instruments that were used in other parts. It is not a matter also of creating, but maybe adapting something that is already made.
Right. If there are no other questions, then we thank you once again.
Okay.
We thank you once again for your questions and for partaking in this webinar with us. Have a good afternoon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.